Hello, hello, and welcome to Latinx YC, where we discuss all things related to U.S. politics from a Latino, Latina, and Latinx perspective. My name is Clemencia Herrera, and I am the founder of Moyer Studio, an advertising agency that works on political and advocacy campaigns that target Latinx.
Hola Clemencia, and I'm Cecilia del Cid, environmental and social justice practitioner, Latin American, immigrant from Guatemala, community weaver, and also working in media.
And today we have a very, very special and different kind of guest. We have Karina Barilla, and she is also from Guatemala, and she lives in Louisville, Kentucky. Hello.
Hello.
She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English, Psychology, and Education, and a Master's in Education from the University of Louisville. That's a lot of degrees. Me quito el sombrero. Karina began her advocacy and organizing work as a student in the year 2000, and she's one of the co-founders and currently the executive director of La Casita Center, a community of Latinx hospitality unique in Kentucky that enhances the well-being of Louisville's Latinx community through education, empowerment, advocacy, and wellness. You're doing God's work. Definitely. Karina is the recipient of multiple local, state, and international awards. I can't see why not. And during the current pandemic, Karina's commitment to the well-being of the Latinx community has been documented in several local media outlets, as well as in the Washington Post and New York Times. Welcome, Karina. You're amazing.
Muchas gracias. Muy contenta de estar aquí. Very, very happy to be with you all this afternoon. And thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be with my dear and beloved sister of the heart and the soul, Ceci del Cid. So muchas gracias for the invitation.
Thanks for being here with us, my love.
So why I'm so excited about having Karina with us today is that many times in this podcast, we talk about, and we have guests about mass communications, mass movements, national strategies and things like that. And today we're actually going micro, right? And we're going to talk to someone with boots on the ground, listening and working with the Latino community directly every single day. This is this is information that goes beyond polls, beyond data. This is real people, grassroots movement. And I know that grassroots is a word that gets thrown around a lot, and we're going to get into that a little bit later, but it is so powerful in our communities because it's really building from the ground up that moves the needle. So I'm very excited to talk about it, and tell us a little bit more. Like, what in your mind is grassroots organizing? I mean, you've been involved in it for so long.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the most powerful tools that we have is language, and how we are, as we speak, dismantling white heteropatriarchy. So how we can, as a movement, start with the language that we use. I don't think that the grassroots movement is from the bottom up. If we look at it within a feminist lens, it's something, if I may say, everything at the same level. Nobody's on top, nobody's down. Because the minute that you say, we are at the bottom, that means that we are less. So let's start with that right there and then. So the power and the strength of our community, it is not because we are at the bottom. It is because we are day to day walking, accompanying, and building this movement, that has a huge impact in whatever else is happening, in our city, in our state, in the United States. So that's absolutely very important for us to mention. Something else that we are trying to do in the accompaniment that we are doing every day here at La Casita and here in Louisville is how we dismantle white supremacy. How do we dismantle white supremacy within the Latinx community? Is, by starting and saying out loud, I decolonize myself the minute that I take the time, the effort, and the intention to listen to every person that I encounter, every person that calls our line, every person that comes to our building, because it is through them that we, as a group of multiple communities that have been just enclosed in Latinidad, that we can understand what those realities are. Usually, my issues with the elite and the top is that people like me, like the two of you, we are asked for our opinions. We are asked to fill out surveys. We are asked to sit at the table. But people, the most vulnerable ones, the ones that have been marginalized, the ones that have been minoritized, are never asked. So those issues, those important and intrinsic issues that affect so much our communities at large, are never put at the table, are never discussed. Why? Because, they have voices, but their voices, are not taken seriously, are not even asked, for them to share those voices with us.
That's so interesting. And in your opinion right now, what would be the top 3 issues that you think are not being put on the table, that are not, that people don't really know about, or they don't think they're important enough, that the Latinx community is going through?
Mm-hmm. Well, Clemencia, let me tell you, I am but a whisper of the community. I am only one person, and my perspective is not everybody's perspective. But what I can tell you, our people are suffering. Immigrating in any way, as a refugee, as an asylum seeker, as somebody that crosses the border, it's a very difficult and very painful experience. So bring with that, leaving what you love the most, or leaving what you love the most because of violence, because of the result of the U.S. international and foreign policies, for losing, what we love the most, because we are still surviving 529 years of colonization, and we haven't even found ourselves and identify ourselves, with our places of origin. So I would say that it is that feeling of loss, that feeling of that we are domesticated with, of helplessness, that we are not able to, and then encountering ourselves in a place where, unfortunately, racism and white supremacy are at the top of everything. So we can, I mean, there are no top 3, housing, domestic violence, sexual assault, trafficking, lack of good and meaningful immigration reform that will support, the hardworking immigrants. And I can go on and on, as you can tell, about what are those issues, but also also the separation that exists among generations. I am from the Generation X. And then, we have our Latinx millennials, and now we have the Gen Zs. There is a huge gap among all of us. And if we include the baby boomers, the ones born and raised here in the U.S., the first generations, the Puerto Ricans that came, to New York and New Jersey and that area, you can also see that huge gap. So there is, the system, the mainstream, trying to lump us, all of us, in one space, and there is this lack of sync, because white supremacy does a wonderful job in making sure that we are competing, that everybody wants to be whiter than the white, that we lose who we are, that we lose our identity, that we lose the celebration of our culture. So when that happens, then a lot of issues start happening within our own community. When we start thinking, again, to your early point, that there's some elite, there's some more important, some more top people that can make all the decisions for everybody, at the bottom. That just tells you that there is a huge, kind of
disconnect.
There is a disagreement. There is not, we are not looking at each other, and we are not really honoring the struggle and the pain, because the pain is not only one. there are different kind of struggles. There are different kind of issues depending on who you are, your background, your story, your historical story of oppression, the racism your family, yourself, and your community has gone through. So there are so many issues out there that I couldn't choose three. It's complicated. I would say.
Yeah, and as you're talking, you're connecting so many dots in my mind about so many things that we've talked in the past, and it's like, the root of everything is this connection, and also just you rip yourself away from where you originally are, and then you're here and you don't belong anywhere. And it's like the system makes sure that you don't get settled. It's like, when you're talking about those restaurants that they have like half an hour tables that are like, half an hour chairs, it's like they make the chair uncomfortable so you could leave. So it's like they make it uncomfortable for you to leave, so it's like, hey, I'm not gonna make it easy for you just because like I don't want you here, or or like I don't want you to belong here. So it's sort of like, it's like that's the root of everything, and so it's a very interesting point that you're making, because it's connecting so many things for me. But thank you for sharing that.
No, I wanted to say thank you for starting by applying that very anti-oppressive and social justice lens to the analysis. I think that there's something that Clemencia and I have always tried to help each other understand, and definitely for me, decolonizing my mind, it's been it's an everyday work, and it's work that I'm going to have to do until I'm no longer here, right, in this physical form. So I think I appreciate you making all those connections. I also, so within all, that frame of thought that you are bringing to the table, what are some of the things that you think have worked and have not, or like what works and what doesn't work? What are some of the most effective ways that you have found in your strategies, in your experience, that have allowed you to build power, to unify power, to kind of breach that disconnection that is intentional in the system, that is intentional in the oppressive systems that we all, kind of function within? What has worked? What are some of the things that you count as your successes? And what have been some of the lessons learned?
Gracias, Ceci. What I can tell is the result of what La Casita is today, and for people that are accompanying us today in this conversation, for you to know is La Casita is a unique organization, Latinx-led, feminist-led in the state of Kentucky. When I say unique, I am not saying it, with arrogance. I am saying it with a lot of pride. Why? Because everything that we have built within who we are as a team, who we are as people, have been built with the accompaniment of our community. So it is with the whole intention. As I said, we are dismantling white supremacy. We are dismantling white patriarchy. I've been saying this word all day, and right now, like, my brain is like, oh my gosh, stop saying that word.
Your brain is trying to block it because it's such a painful word, right?
White patriarchy, in the daily accompaniment that we do, that I think that our biggest success is how we are changing, and we are, and the word I know is made up, but how we are demainstreamifying the accompaniments, the services, the way that the interventions are being provided for our community. Because, everything that has been put in mainstream hasn't built for us, hasn't been built for Black, Brown, Indigenous, Latinx peoples. It has been built for somebody else, somebody that believed that they knew better than us, how to intervene in the pain and the struggle of our communities. So I think that our success comes with the intentionality of every day trying to discover what is the best way for that accompaniment. And with that humbleness and as well as with the resiliency that we bring for years. Ceci and I come from an area that if you are not acquainted with Guatemala City, you are not going to understand what I'm talking about. But, we are from the ghetto. We are from the place where drugs are distributed. We are from the place where crime is being organized. And we know race. We don't know racism, but we know classism. We know crime. Mm-hmm. We know what patriarchy and machismo and domination have done to our people. So with our resiliency, but also with that relentless feeling that there is something much, much better out there for us and for our community, we bring that lens, and I know our families come with that relentless desire that there is a better life. So I think that there is not one success. I think that what happens within our community is that we continue evolving. We continue being who we are. We continue trying to figure out who we are as individuals. We see it, the three of us we are Latinx, we are Latinas, but this term, Latinidad, Latina, Hispanic, Latinx, Latine now, it's evolving, and that's how we are as a group of people evolving. We don't know how we're going to be calling ourselves in 5 or 10 years. So with that is the success, that we have the ability just to flow. We have the ability, just to go, to do what it needs to be done at the moment to survive, to be resilient, and to be relentless to whatever comes our way.
As I hear you talk, and I know that you and I come from a very special and specific place in Guatemala City, but I also think about kind of political power. And Conesi and I spend a lot of time kind of thinking about how do we get the community involved, how do we activate ourselves as like in civic engagement, with all the problems that could be around that term, but kind of how do we engage ourselves in like everyday participation? How do we bring, as citizens of this place or any place in Latin America, our voice to the table? In your experience, thinking about some of the sometimes probably most vulnerable kind of like segments of our community, of our society, newer immigrants that sometimes representatives or politicians are thinking, well, they're not voters, so why engage them? Do you find yourself that the community that comes to you, to La Casita, are politically engaged? Are they interested in what is happening here? Do they want to learn?
Or were they involved politically back in their countries?
Yeah.
Well, politics sounds different to everyone. The first thing that I can tell you, we come from countries where we don't want to say that we are political because politics sounds to corruption, right?
Corruption.
It sounds like the civil wars, the all that pain and struggle in our countries, back in the day, in the times of the Cold War, and the consequences that all of that brought to our countries and our communities. I can also say that a lot of people survived those wars, that struggle in different ways, that it might seem, if we look at it within a white lens, like politics, organizing themselves and resisting in ways that might not be what people would do here, but that are absolutely very necessary back home. So in itself, as politicians, I don't think that people are involved in that way. One of the things that we are doing currently, here, pre-pandemic, of course. Whenever new candidates or new campaigns were running, is the ones that have already caught the attention of politicians or the candidates, for us to say, we want to invite you to our spaces so people can see you, so people can ask the questions. And to Ceci's point, that is very important. A lot of politicians think, oh no, why should we care? Their numbers are very low. They don't vote. They don't speak English. Yeah. But one of the things that I've been telling personally politicians is that you think we don't vote? Our kids will. If in the last 25 years, all our children all the children of the people that we've been accompanying for years, have gone through so many things, and now they are adults. Believe me, they are not going to forget. They cannot even close their eyes and say, oh yeah, my parents were treated with so much dignity. They absolutely not. So that's why it's very important for politicians in general, people that are want to reach out to us to do their work, do their homework very intentionally, to do it, with the determination that it's not about who votes, but who is watching what you're doing now that we are powerless, now that the numbers are lower, supposedly. Because I want to say, honestly, I tell everybody, you think that our numbers are very little? I worked really hard in the census. Our organization worked really hard with the census. And believe me, the numbers that the census are reporting are not the reality of how many we are in this country. So you want political power, if that's what you're after, do your homework. Do your homework well from now, right now. Don't wait until our children are grown-ups and have that capacity to vote.
I get goosebumps just by you saying those children will never forget, because it's so true. And those children will fight, and those children will get involved eventually, and they will vote. So, but it's also, in my mind, it also says, all these immigrants will at some point become, documented, or the children will become documented. There's like no long-term plan here when it comes to immigrants. It's just like everything is like, immigration right now is just a political football, and it's just being used, to pull voters here or there. But there's no long-term plan. There's no like, hey, you know what? Whoever actually takes care of this in a humane and community-focused way, those are the ones that will get the votes. And it is just such a simple, concept, but it's just, I don't know why it's so difficult to execute, and I don't know why nobody actually is developing long-term plans for it. And I'm not even saying, I think both parties are doing it terribly. Yes. I don't think anybody's doing it, correctly at this point, or even humanely at this point. I mean, telling people not to come, going to a country and telling people not to come, that's not the right way to do it either. Just switching around, like, yeah, we're gonna do this, or no, we're not gonna do that. Oh yeah, forget it, we can't do that anymore. That's also, these are humans. They're not, things that, it's not the stock market that you can like pull things and push things and things like that. These are human beings, and they will remember. So it's such a powerful sentence that you gave us there.
Yeah, I also, it also makes me think about some of the messaging we get sometimes about how our communities actually voted against our own interests. I think there was a lot of numbers thrown around during the last election saying about how much of our community came out and voted, for the previous administration. Yeah, and I wonder, as someone who is so connected to the community, because I feel like there's been moments in my personal and professional life when I feel much more connected to the community, and right now I am a little more degrees of separation, but you continue to be very much linked. Was that something that you observe? Do you have any thoughts about that particular observation? Like, are men voting different? Are men, Latino men, Latinx men, younger men, older men, voting in ways that are not always beneficial to the community? Or are these just numbers that are normal? There is always a kind of a segment of the Latino vote that is about 35% who votes more conservatively. Is that something that candidates that are more progressive or that maybe are independent need to know? We have discussed many times here that the Latino vote is not particularly Democrat or Republican for, within the United States context, that we are very much independent or swing voters. Mm-hmm. What do you make of those numbers, if you have any thoughts about it?
So, specifically with the people that we accompany, there are so many factors. One of them, a lot of people still depend on what the leaders of their churches, temples, religious organizations get to say about something. So that's, that would be maybe perhaps people my generation or people that come straight from Latin America and brand new to the country. But something that I really, that was so refreshing and was so wonderful is to see how, at least in our city, Latinx millennials, were so involved and getting inspired by someone as AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who, is really a reflection of Latinx millennials, hopefully here in Louisville and everywhere in the U.S. So that's what I saw. I saw the involvement from the youth. That's why I just mentioned, maybe we don't vote, but our kids will. And there it is, this huge movement that is very vocal. Because if we come from Latin America and if we colonize the layers, we are like an onion, right? Like the layers of that onion are thicker and we have more layers to peel off for us to hopefully one day decolonize ourselves totally. So it's very difficult, to be brave and courageous enough to speak up on issues that affect us all. How difficult it was. We are the city of Breonna Taylor, but how difficult it was for people to understand what it meant Black Lives Matter. How difficult it was for people, to speak very openly about that October 12th is not a day to celebrate, because why are we going to celebrate this horrible man that brought rape, theft, and tragedy and death to our people, So how do we have those conversations with people that, like, my generation, my age, that they don't want to talk about that. It's hard, it's difficult, it's painful. How as well, having conversations on white supremacy. Oh my gosh, before the racial unrest, you couldn't say that word. And I love to say it, and I try to say it as many times as I can during the day now that I have the opportunity, because it's something real, even within our community, as Latinx people. Some of us want to be more gringo than the gringo. Some of us will exploit our people more than our oppressors are oppressing us. So those are the issues. How intergenerational, in the intersectionality of who we are as people, come with those issues and look at at the lens of it doesn't have anything to do with having papers or not. Profiling profiling doesn't have anything to do with you have papers or not. You can be Puerto Rican and be stopped by ICE and taken to immigration jail. So it is about putting those issues that pertains to us all. That is, stop being accomplices of the marginalization of our people, of our communities, and also stop calling ourselves minorities. When we call ourselves minorities, we are accepting that we are less. The word minor, menos, means less. So how we are, again, changing the language and putting the issues in a way that where we can see ourselves, with the capacity and with the integrity that we have to be at the level of the ones that make the decisions.
Wonderful.
Wow. Thank you. I mean, I've learned so much in this episode. Thank you so much for letting us pick your brain and offloading all this truth. And I love that, this whole sentence of stop being an accomplice.
Yeah.
It's something, it's a lot of food for thought. Like, what are we all doing every single day that makes us accomplices to our own oppression?
To our dehumanization.
Yeah. And so and I know that we, have been victims of certain things, but it's, there's empowerment in those words, How are we going to change things? How are we going to stop letting this happen? From any kind of level, whatever level that we are, in our assimilation or in income level, whatever, government level, whatever it is. But it's like, what are we each going to do to stop being accomplices to it? So that was absolutely powerful. And we've run out of time, and I would love to keep talking, but we got half an hour. Karina, thank you so much. You just dropped so many truth bombs. I mean, we're gonna have to digest this for some time, and you're doing amazing work. And please come back whenever you want. We can keep talking about so many other things. Thank you so much, Ceci.
Oh, thank you, Karina, mi amor.
Muchas gracias, chicas.
Gracias. Thanks everyone out there. If you guys have any questions, if you want to say anything to Karina, please email me, clem@latinxyzpod.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, latinxyzpod. And that's it for today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Karina.
Muchas gracias, chicas. Un beso muy grande.
Un beso.